Oh, shoot. When did you get in here?
Oh, shoot? That's what everybody says when they see me. Oh, shoot. I'm just wondering what it is.
We get started.
I mean, everybody's seen The Big Lebowski, so we got the first word. But I don't know
Have we all seen The Big Lebowski?
Have we all seen? Oh, my. Oh, it's a
I don't
classic.
think so.
It's a
I'm
classic.
Shomer Shabbat.
I don't watch movies.
Classic. I don't either. My sons watch the movies, and then I just kind of deliver them by osmosis.
Anyway, I've not seen it.
Today we're covering Shabbat and Kashrut. These are two categories of Jewish law. I should take this off, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I think we can all guess at what Shabbat is, more or less. It's very similar to Sabbath. It is, in fact, the same word, just translated into a different language. And Kashrut, you might know the word kosher.
Oh.
So Kashrut is Jewish dietary law. Hello. Hello. There we go. All right, what's Shabbat? Shabbat is the holiest day in Judaism. We covered holidays a few weeks back. Shabbat is the most important holiday. In fact, it was so important that back in ye olden times, violating Shabbat was punishable by death.
What olden time?
The olden times, like Jesus times and before.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Jew for not?
Yeah.
So
That's
if he
why-
healed people on the Sabbath, he was punishable by death, but they didn't kill him until.
But they were planning.
They were kind of reaching with that one.
So
I
not
think
everybody got put to death, each on the Sabbath. I'm sorry, I'll quit asking questions.
No, I think that's an
is
excellent
healing
question.
work or not? That's up for debate. Now, when the disciples were picking grain on the Sabbath, and they came after Jesus for that one, I think was a stronger argument. But there are exceptions, and I think everything that they did was actually within the exceptions. And so I don't think they really violated Shabbat.
So this is fascinating to me. I just want to mention that being raised Roman Catholic, if you missed Mass, that was a mortal sin. You were in serious trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that is where, this is where that comes from.
Might be. We don't care if anyone misses service, though.
Yeah, but I understand. Okay.
Like, we'll miss you, but it's not one of the laws that you have to go to service.
I'm just wondering if this is where the Roman Catholicism
Probably, yeah.
where that evolved.
But you wonder when the Catholic made rule, because there were all those things that you thought
Good.
went back to
Yeah, good
origins, and then it turns out, 1854. What do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
joining us?
Should we back up? Yes, I'm.
Okay. We're doing Shabbat
Okay.
and Kashrut, which is, Shabbat is the holy day like Sabbath.
Okay.
Kashrut is like kosher, Jewish dietary law.
Okay.
So Shabbat is the holiest day. It's more important than all the other holidays we discussed a couple weeks back. Jewish days start at night, at sunset, and not in the morning. Because in Genesis, there was evening, and then there was morning the first day, etc., etc. So we like to be difficult. And Shabbat specifically commemorates either the creation or the Exodus. The text disagrees with itself and gives one is the reason in one passage and the other is the reason in the other passage because we like to be difficult. So there's a bunch of different traditions for Shabbat. Some of you may have heard the word Kabbalah. This is the commonly used word to describe the tradition of Jewish mysticism. But its bare definition is just revealing. And so on Friday night, we have a tradition called Kabbalat Shabbat, revealing Shabbat, or welcoming Shabbat. This is actually a Kabbalistic practice. It's pretty recent. It started around somewhere on those timelines. I have a time when Kabbalah was really booming. I want to say 15th century, maybe? But I'm really bad with dates. In Kabbalah, God has a bunch of different aspects. And the one that is the presence of God on earth is feminine in nature. It's called the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah is felt especially strongly during Shabbat. So we welcome Shabbat in as though the Sabbath is a queen. We dress nicely. 18 minutes before sunset, we light candles. You have to light the candles before sunset because once the sun sets, you can't work, and lighting candles is work. We do Kiddush and Hamotzi, which are blessings over the wine and the bread. There's a bunch of special prayers to welcome in the Shabbat Queen. We have a big dinner. Traditionally, this would be a meat dinner. So you would save up your money and buy meat for Shabbat, not any other day. Yes.
So it was all prepared prior to.
Everything had to be prepared during the day before the sunset,
And
or
cleaned up.
before candles.
You don't get cleaned up until the next day.
Right.
They just leave it, that sounds good.
Yeah, you can't wash until later.
Is there significance to the 18?
18 minutes is the rabbinical decision for the latest you can do it before getting so close to sunset that you risk missing the window and accidentally lighting the candles too late.
So there are prayers and words that go with it. It's not just light, or is it? Am I getting ahead?
Not really. We can talk about this. So we've got 2 candles for Shabbat. You strike your match. You light both of the candles. Then you circle your hands around them 3 times, cover your eyes, and you say the candle blessing. Then you pick up your cup of wine. You say the wine blessing. You drink some wine. Then you pick up your bread, say the bread blessing, and eat the bread. And then it's Shabbat. And then you can do all your prayers and songs and all that stuff.
So you have to make sure you have time to get all of that in, not just the lighting.
You just have to light the candles 18 minutes before. The rest isn't work, so it's safe.
Oh,
Question, you said 2 candles,
Yes.
so I'm trying to correlate the 2 it's 18 minutes.
So this is all home, this is not in the synagogue.
You can do it in the synagogue. Either way, most more observant sects, like the modern Orthodox, will do candles at home and then they'll go to synagogue for prayers. Less observant, like Reform, the temple here, for example, they'll do it at the synagogue. Reform will just light candles at the same time every day, no matter when sunset is, which is actually one of my least favorite parts about going to a Reform temple. Because I don't think we should be lighting them after sunset.
Okay, so you're not a Jew.
No, not exactly. And Shabbat ends when there are 3 stars in the sky. So we wait a little bit after sunset to end Shabbat, just to be sure that we're not ending Shabbat too soon and accidentally violating Shabbat. There's actually a story in the Talmud where some eyewitness comes in and says, hey, I saw 3 stars, and the rabbis say, okay, Shabbat's over. And then another eyewitness comes in later and says, now there's 3 stars. So it's a big issue to be very careful.
So
And
everybody killed?
nobody was killed,
I'm
but
just asking.
yeah, they had to set up like extra rules, like you need 2 people to witness the stars. You got to be extra sure.
What if it's cloudy?
These days, we have, astronomy is developed enough that we actually have tables of all of the times well in advance. So you can just look at your watch and check the table.
So you don't
Okay.
have to go outside.
Yeah.
Evelyn, would you go back, because the extent that I have had Shabbat, it was observant. They weren't Orthodox, but they were observant. And I don't think they snuck out and went to synagogue, and like the whole thing did.
Synagogue is optional. It's very optional.
But does everybody, so if you don't do it, if you go to synagogue, do you home and everything? Right?
You have to cook ahead of time. More people go to Shabbat morning service than Shabbat evening service.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, that is Catholic.
Just because Kabbalat Shabbat is extremely popular, so people like to have their thing at home and eat dinner with their friends and family. If you do go to synagogue, sometimes they'll have food there, so you don't have to worry about that. The one here always has food, which I like because I like food. But going to the synagogue is not a hugely important thing. It's become more important, especially in America, because we're trying to fit in, and Christians go to church every week, so we're like, maybe we should do that too, so we can be more acceptable.
I was surprised during morning Shabbat service when the rabbi walked out in the middle of the service, and later, we asked him, and he said the service goes on for 3 hours, and the service is conducted by the members of the congregation, so I don't have to be there. I thought that was sort of different from my Protestant.
Your rabbi is more a stack of books and trench coat. He's the legal authority of the community. The entire service is pretty much just, it's in a book. We have like books that detail all of the liturgy and stuff. Anyone can do it. You just need 10 people. Okay, these are all of the things that you cannot do on Shabbat. It's a very long list. I can read every single one of them.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
do.
Probably should
I
depend small.
can see it.
Okay, plowing earth. Where's my pointer? No plowing. Sowing, reaping, binding sheaves, threshing, winnowing, selecting, grinding, sifting, kneading, baking, shearing wool, washing wool, beating wool, dyeing wool, spinning, weaving, making loops, making threads, separating threads, tying, untying, sewing stitches, tearing, trapping, slaughtering, flaying, tanning, scraping hide, marking hide, cutting hide, writing, erasing, building, demolishing, extinguishing fire, kindling fire, putting the finishing touches on something, and transporting an object between public and private domains. Why these things specifically? During the Exodus, when the Jews are wandering the desert for 40 years, God tells them to build a sort of portable temple thing called the tabernacle in most English Bibles. And these are all of the things involved in building the tabernacle. So this is the category of work legally in Judaism. It doesn't mean going to your job necessarily, but most times your job will involve these activities. But there's two categories of work. There's this work, and then there's service, would be a common translation, and that type of work is acceptable. I don't have a slide for exceptions, but there are exceptions depending on your denomination. The big exception that is always across the board is called pekuin nefesh, to save a life. If you're doing something to save a life, it's always acceptable no matter what day it is.
So if somebody's house caught on fire, it could extinguish. Because this extinguishing of fire sounds more like it's meant to be intended as your fireplace or your cooking fire or something that is also.
Judaism is not interested in the spirit of the law, but the letter of the law. So extinguishing fire is extinguishing fire,
Okay.
no matter what kind of fire it is. It depends on how strict your rabbi is.
But wouldn't that be a service to some extent?
No. It's the letter, not the spirit. Extinguishing is work, not service work, no matter the context.
What then would be service? Can help me.
Comes here, has been.
Yes. Yeah, I'm allowed to sit in a chair and press a button.
So I'm just confused. Is this something that, tell me about the different, I've only listened to you once, so this is my only second. What the Reform and the Orthodox, where does the line go on this?
On this, Reform doesn't consider any of this to be binding.
No.
There are more recommendations. Conservative and modern Orthodox do consider these to be binding, although conservative will make more exceptions.
So it's kind of like a literal or unliteral, how we talk about the Bible in those terms, and that kind of thing.
You mean like biblical literalism?
Well, I'm
Or-
just talking about, Judy talks about it a lot, what it means in the context of the time or so, as opposed to what it means when we actually read it. I'm saying.
Yeah.
Get it, go on.
It depends. The more reform you get, the more they will say, oh, it's just the times, we don't need to listen to that.
Don't listen to it, but interpret it a different.
But legally, by Jewish law, the law is the law. There's no context necessary. That sounds weird.
I think there's maybe one way to look at it. These are rules, but there's nothing inherently moral.
Mm-hmm.
You keep using conservative and modern, and it sounds like modern is more conservative than conservative.
Yes. The reform movement is extremely liberal, trying to fit in with the contemporary culture in Germany where it started. So they are super loosey-goosey with law and practice. Modern Orthodox is the complete other end of the spectrum, where they're trying to hold on to as much tradition as possible. Conservative started as a response to reform. They didn't like that reform was so liberal, so they're sort of a middle ground, but they call themselves conservative to differentiate themselves from reform.
It's almost like there's multiple versions of Christianity.
So conservative is a confusing name, but it just means more conservative than reform. Doesn't mean conservative politically, or it doesn't mean the most conservative. It's just an unfortunate name that has stuck around.
So, what about driving a
Driving an electric car is okay depending on your denomination. If you're conservative or more liberal, electric cars are okay. Modern Orthodox considers electricity to be fire, though. So if you're Orthodox, you cannot drive any kind of car. Internal combustion engines are right out because they're kindling fire.
And then this is where the whole elevator, set the elevator so it stops at every floor so you don't hit the button.
Yeah, that's a modern Orthodox thing because it lights up and stuff. It's electricity. You can't press the buttons.
But you can benefit from the electricity used to raise the doctor's fee.
It's pre-programmed before Shabbat. What are you going to do? Not use it? A lot of modern Orthodox, like synagogues or households, will put their lights on timers or have motion detectors so that the lights turn on and off automatically and they're not actually kindling the fire. It just is kindling itself.
I was reminding Amish that, they will employ drivers with big vans to take them to Aldi so they can get trees, but they didn't actually drive, so they get to.
The modern Orthodox employ a similar loophole where they'll have like a friend who is not a Jew. It's called a Shabbos Goy, or a Shabbat Gentile.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to directly ask them to do things for you on Shabbat because that's also, you're still violating Shabbat by doing that, by just because you're having someone else do something.
So you can't even ask them.
No, because you're intending to violate the Shabbat. But one story I heard that's a really good example is there's a modern Orthodox family living in an apartment in New York, and they forgot to turn on their air conditioner. So they invite their neighbor over, and they're hanging out, and they're like, "Oh man, it's really hot in here."
Oh my god.
And that is considered allowed because they're not asking the Shabbos Goy to turn on the air conditioner. The Shabbos Goy is electing to do it of their own free will.
This almost sounds like Paul and Philemon today. Like, I really think I do this, and I'm not going to do it, but I actually am a check. I think we did it.
Yeah, but there also can't be any implication of like,
Oh, okay. So they can't even, all they can do is fan themselves and wait for their
yes.
Goy neighbor to go over.
Or the data.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
I don't think I fully answered the fire question. Depends on your rabbi whether you can put the fire out, but you can definitely go in and get the people who are in the fire out of the fire.
Evelyn, in the scheme of things, what percentage of Jews are Orthodox versus conservative versus
I do not have the numbers.
Reform?
Reform is the biggest in America.
What is Reform?
Reform, yeah.
I mean, Orthodox is fairly small, is it not, in numbers? I mean, there's places where it's a whole community.
Cities like New York have a ton of modern Orthodox and they have large families. So I can't say for sure that they're numerically small, but geographically they're definitely small. They all like to live very close together, especially because you can't drive to the synagogues, so you have to live within walking distance of the synagogue, which means everybody has to live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm going to tell this little story. So I had a friend who was not, she was Jewish, she was not observant, but she lived in an Orthodox neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I'm staying there, and I get up on Saturday, and I find there's all that noise outside. What are all those voices? The street is filled with voices. And was everybody going?
Yep. Everyone hangs out, has a good time. It's almost like family home evening in Mormonism. If anyone's familiar with Mormonism, but they take a day off or not a day, an evening off to just spend time with the family, no TV or anything, just entertaining each other, board games, songs, like, what's that one where you're miming things and people guess what you're doing? Charades. Yeah. Any other questions on this absurd list of restrictions? It is a lot of things. Okay. But there's even more restrictions that the rabbis enacted to put a fence around the Torah. Putting a fence around the Torah is a phrase that we use to describe additional rules that we put up around the Torah rules to make sure that no one accidentally violates the Shabbat, doing something that they think might be okay. So these are the additional rabbinical restrictions that are not in the Torah, but we put there just to be safe. So you're not supposed to use objects that have no use. So let's say a button falls off of your jacket or you drop a bowl and it breaks. You can't touch it, just in case that would constitute work in some way or another. Valuable objects that don't have any sort of designated use, like cameras, crystal decorations, specialized work tools, things like that, you probably should not touch. Objects that are forbidden from use for other reasons. I don't really know why the rabbis felt they had to specify that, because they're already forbidden from use. But for example, if the roof falls off of your sukkah, you're not allowed to fix it. It's kind of a very niche rule. Sukkah is the hut that you live in during Sukkot. You got to go back to the other class and watch it. Because it's very much outside the scope of this. And any object whose primary purpose is for a forbidden activity. So you can't pick up a pen because you can't write. You can't pick up a hammer because you can't build. You're not supposed to touch money or your credit cards or anything like that. Most more observant Jews will have a designated place to put all of those things before Shabbat starts, and they just don't open that drawer or closet. There are activities that are encouraged during Shabbat to make sure that you have a full and meaningful Shabbat. Of course, the first one is studying, because we like to study. So discussing Torah and expanding your knowledge. Going to synagogue for prayers is not required, but it's encouraged because we like to be in community, and you need 10 Jews to do most of the prayers. So if nobody goes to synagogue, then they can't do their prayers. Spending time with other Jews. Zemirot and Nigunim are the special songs that were discussed earlier in the Kabbalat Shabbat slide. Sex between husband and wife is also encouraged because not for procreation strictly, but just because it's a good thing. And sleeping. It's good to take a nap. It's a very common tradition for many people to take a walk, say hi to your neighbors, and then go home and take a long nap. Catch up on your sleep. I think I had something else to add, but now I can't think of it. Some rabbis will encourage music, and some rabbis will not. Because music is fun, it's enriching, but if it's going to disturb someone else's Shabbat, then maybe don't do it. If you know that your next door neighbor is trying to sleep, probably don't be on your drum set. The rabbi who trained me had a sort of different view of the Shabbat rules. He said that the point of Shabbat is to consider the world as though it were perfect. You're not trying to change anything about the world. You're enjoying it as though it were perfect. So that's why you can't build, you can't write. The world is good enough as it is. The rest of the days of the week, the world's not perfect. And we know that. There's hunger and violence and all these bad things. But for just one day a week, we consider that God made the world for me, and I'm going to enjoy it as it is. All right, enough about Shabbat, unless anyone has questions. Additional question, anything else?
So then it seems like a difference is, it's not a day for teaching or learning, right? Like Christians, it's a day, and worshiping. So is your worship considered praying these groups of people?
Worship's a tricky word, but I guess so. I think the primary form of worship is observing the law. Second would be study, and then I think prayer would be third. Okay, Kashrut. What is kosher? What is not kosher? What am I allowed to eat and what am I not? Firstly, no blood is allowed. After the flood, God gives some of the rules to Noah. Really just one rule. He says you can eat meat, but you cannot eat the blood. The blood is the life, and the life belongs to God. So Jewish ritual slaughter requires that all of the blood be drained. Sort of returning the life force of the animal to God. Ritual slaughter is kind of messy. You take a very, very sharp blade, and in one motion you cut the trachea, esophagus, and carotid arteries and jugular veins so that all of the blood comes out really fast. The animal ideally should not suffer. If it's done right, death is almost instant. Some cultures will consider this inhumane and use that pneumatic piston thing that just pierces the skull or whatever. Instant death. But observant Jews have to have their own specially trained butchers to do ritual slaughter. Very observant Jews cannot eat anything that has been slaughtered by a non-Jew because you can't be sure that they're properly trained in doing everything correctly. Kosher meat is actually extremely expensive, So pretty much everyone outside of modern Orthodoxy will make an exception on that one because it's just so hard to get kosher meat, especially if you don't live in New York City or maybe Detroit. I know Detroit has a big Jewish population in one of the neighborhoods. There's also a process called kashering. So because the slaughter doesn't remove 100% of the blood, you then have to take your meat and either boil it, roast it, or salt it to extract all traces of the blood. There's another strange rule where we're not allowed to mix meat and dairy. That's because there is a very cryptic verse that says, "You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk." Yeah, so do we. What exactly does it mean?
I wanted to know who would do that first of all.
Does it literally mean you can't boil a kid in its mother's milk? Does it mean you can't cook it in milk of the same species? Does it mean just any meat in milk? We're not sure because it doesn't explain it. And maybe somebody knew like 3,000 years ago, but we don't. So to be safe, we just don't mix meat and milk at all. Very.
Single meal.
Hmm?
In a single, what does it mean?
You can't even mix them like in your mouth.
So you can't serve hamburger with custard
Or cheese.
but you could,
No.
but you could serve the hamburger for lunch and the chicken.
Yes. And the more observant you get, the more complicated the rules get. This is the case for everything, so I'll just by default present the most strictest interpretation from here on. If you drink like some eggnog or something, or eat a piece of cheese, you are allowed to thoroughly rinse your mouth, make sure there's no traces left, and then eat meat. But if you eat meat, because pieces of it tend to stick in your teeth, etc., you have to wait a period of at least 2 hours before you consume any dairy.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, good point, it all gets mixed together.
Kosher salt.
Kosher salt is a misnomer. There's nothing kosher about the salt. It's actually kashering salt. It's the type of salt that you use to, you bury your meat in it, and it draws all the blood out.
It's less salty because if you use a recipe and it wants a teaspoon of kosher salt and half a teaspoon.
It's because it's coarse and
Yeah,
there's
the-
spaces
Oh,
between.
so
And if you have very fine salt, then you get more salt in a teaspoon than you
Yeah,
do.
it's the size of the grain.
Yeah.
So kosher's a style of preparation.
No.
No.
Kosher is a category of laws related to what you can and can't eat. The preparation is part of it. It's an important part, but it's only part. I left out a whole bunch of stuff on the slides about accidental contamination. So, mixing meat and milk, generally, you ideally will have 2 sets of dishes, 2 sinks, 2 dishwashers. You'll see this a lot in apartments in New York. So you can have 1 set of everything for meat dishes, 1 set of everything for dairy dishes, and this helps to ensure that you're never accidentally cross-contaminating those things.
So what do you do if you realize you've been to a restaurant or something and oops, there was some milk in the preparation of that meat dish and you didn't know it till you ate it? Do you have to ask forgiveness? Is that a...
We don't really do asking for forgiveness. We have 1 day a year, Yom Kippur, where we just say, like, we've done stuff and please forgive.
So you just move on. Whoops, I want to make sure I don't do that again.
Yeah, the making sure you don't do it again thing
Okay.
is really what we emphasize. Just be better, but it's not like you're going to go to hell because we don't have one. We don't really have a heaven either, so...
So I'm sort of confused, like, how, I don't understand, this is all based on the
The Torah,
Old Testament,
yeah, the first 5 books.
all of these rules and regulations.
Yeah, they're all in there.
Exodus.
Exodus. Leviticus is priestly law. It's very specific to like the Levites and the Aaronites for the most part. Yeah. So if you go to a restaurant, you probably should investigate the restaurant first and see sort of what their practices are. There's a Thai restaurant right by my house, and a lot of Thai recipes will use Thai fish, which is just a category of fish that includes kosher and non-kosher fish. So we just don't eat there because we never know what's going to be in it. Same is true for artificial crab meat. Asians don't like to label their things very well. And I say this as a Korean. Koreans don't care what they eat, for example. So you don't know what kind of fish is in artificial crab meat. And so we just stay away from it altogether. If you call a restaurant and ask, like, how do you prepare things? Because I have dietary restrictions. Or if you just say you have allergies, then they'll tell you, yeah, you're probably safe, we can't guarantee it, or no, you probably shouldn't eat here. There's an allowable degree of accidental contamination. The degree is 1/60th by volume, as long as you can't taste it. So if you're brewing some beef stew and you accidentally spill a drop of milk in it, as long as that drop of milk is less than 1/60th of the volume of the stew, and it does not change the flavor of the stew, you don't have to throw it out.
Oh no, now I have to double my bad drops.
Oh, that's too confusing.
But if you can taste it, then it's contaminated. You have to throw it out. There's also an exception for glassware. If you have glassware, you don't need 2 sinks and 2 sets of dishes, because the rabbis considered glass to be sort of impervious to absorbing the essence of the food. Some rabbis, like the one who trained me, will say that ceramic dishes these days, the glaze and the finish and all that, are as good as glass. So he says that the modern Orthodox are kind of crazy for having 2 sets of dishes in this day and age. It's not like you just have exposed clay that's porous and will actually absorb things. But yeah. Right, what animals are kosher? What are we allowed to eat? Land animals, aka mammals, have to have cloven hooves and chew cud. That's why we can't eat pigs. They don't chew cud. We can't.
I'm sorry.
No, you.
I was gonna say, why?
What's so good about cud?
Oh, yeah, we had the cloven hooves and the ruminants. Why
Why?
the distinction?
We're not sure. We don't know. The Torah doesn't explain it. There are some guesses. Most of the guesses that you'll hear these days have to do with environmental sustainability. We're limiting the kinds of animals that we eat so that we're not just decimating the environment and eating everything.
So it's not historical.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're talking about, was that something that's also from this kosher animal?
These are from the Torah,
Okay.
but it doesn't tell us why. So any guesses as to why are pretty
And
much.
that was in that time, that was their thinking, environmental.
In our time, that's what we're thinking.
Oh, so what's the reason in the old past?
They don't give
God
one.
said so. Because God said so. Yeah.
Well, what animals? I'm not up on my hooves. What animals besides pigs do not have them?
Most of them. It would be easier to say which ones do have these.
Okay.
Things like goats,
Deer.
sheep,
Deer have.
deer.
Okay.
Yeah. We mostly don't domesticate deer though. And there's a whole different set of laws for animals that are hunted.
Oh, really?
Yes. So we tend to pretty much stay away from wild game for the most part because it just gets too complicated. You have to do a whole separate ritual after you kill the hunted animal and stuff. Cows, sheep, and goats are the big ones. Technically, you could eat giraffe.
Horses.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I don't think you can eat horse.
Horses.
Absolutely no reptiles, bugs, or invertebrates except certain types of locusts, like the ones John the Baptist ate. Honey is actually an interesting legal case because most animal waste products and things like that are not kosher, except for honey, which is singled out explicitly, and that's odd. But honey's good, so no one's
It's good.
complaining.
It's good for you also.
Yeah.
And I used to think that some of these rules came from God a way as protecting people against some diseases, like
That is
pigs get
another.
trichomonas, and maybe
That's another common guess as to the reason.
Yeah.
But again, we have no idea why they failed to write it down.
Right.
Fish must have fins and scales. No mollusks like oysters or clams. No shrimps. No octopus. No catfish. No carrion. This applies to birds like vultures as well as to fish like bottom feeders, things like that. This is part of where the environmental interpretation comes in, because bottom feeders and carrion are sort of like the cleaning system of nature. If you eat all of those, then things get pretty nasty pretty quick. And no birds of prey, falcons, eagles, no crows or ravens. Pigeons are okay. You can't eat animals with severe injuries like broken bones, heart conditions, lung conditions, things like that are considered unfit. You can't eat the limbs of living animals because that's just plain cruel. If you cut a leg off of your cow and just eat that, that's messed up. Don't do that.
This isn't really disturbing us.
And we can't eat the sciatic nerve because when Jacob was on his way back home after leaving Laban's house, he wrestles with God and he pulls his groin And so we don't eat the sciatic nerve to remember that. I'm not sure why that's a thing,
Search that out.
but it's in the Torah, so we do it. Pop quiz, is it kosher? It is kosher.
No,
No bacon.
we got that already.
No bacon.
Yeah.
Is it kosher?
Yes.
It is. How about this guy?
I think you said you could eat a camel.
I'm trying to
Choose
look
a
at his
giraffe.
You
hooves.
mentioned giraffes.
I'm trying to look
I
at
did
his
mention
hooves.
giraffes.
He fits, we know that.
Those
So
hooves
does that
cloven
cut
or
you?
not, it's hard to see. Does he,
How many
I think
stomachs
he's
does a
cut.
camel have?
I don't, did they eat camel?
So the camel does chew cud,
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
and its hooves look like they're cloven, but they're not truly cloven. They just have weird toes.
Like webbed toes?
So on first glance, you might think camel is kosher, but it is not.
Mm.
Which is a shame because I hear camel hump meat is delicious, and I will never know.
What about ducks and geese? Can you eat ducks and geese? They don't
Probably
chew
not gonna
cud.
happen for us either.
They don't-
There's a separate rule for
Mammals,
birds.
that's
Birds.
just mammals.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Is it kosher?
You don't want to eat them.
No, you can't eat people.
Yeah, cannibalism is not.
People neither chew cud nor have cloven hooves.
We're safe. Yay, we're safe. Maybe, unless it's time for us.
Is it kosher?
No, it doesn't have any scales.
It looks
It's just
janky.
Does it have
unscaly.
scales? Can't see.
The scales.
This is a tuna. It does have scales.
Oh, it does,
Okay.
okay.
So it is kosher. We can eat tuna. As long as it's really tuna and it's not mislabeled fish, which is a huge problem in the US.
Yeah.
Really?
Sometimes. Fish fraud is huge in the US. It's really difficult for consumers to tell just by looking at like the fish meat what it is. So a lot of times people will substitute out a cheaper fish and tell you that it's something more expensive. A lot of Jews won't buy any sort of canned tuna or canned fish at all. Try to stick to identifiable cuts.
Is that why sometimes the skin might be left on a piece of fish because it's more identifiable with some skin on it? I mean, and I think at the market where they have phase litter.
I think that's probably more a happy accident. I think the skin is there for like freshness or something. I don't think there's a huge demand for things to be specifically kosher outside of certain cities. Because again, most American Jews are Reform and they don't care. They'll still eat whatever they want. Yeah. Is it kosher?
That's a catfish, no.
That's right, because they don't have true scales. What about this?
No.
Carrion. That's a vulture. It eats dead things, so it's off limits. Yes, we can't eat chickens because they're not carrion, they're not birds of prey. Most of the common birds are fine. Most people don't even bother to learn the bird rules. I presented a simplified example because any commonly eaten bird is fine. Turkey, chicken, duck, all that stuff is good to eat. What about this? Bird of prey. All done. Any questions? Any questions about anything since this is the last class? We'll just open it up.
The first line on the kosher slide about with the mammals. Kosher animals. Kosher must have cloven hooves. So that's your pig.
But it doesn't chew cud. It has to have both.
Okay.
Both.
duh, Okay, and I saw.
I didn't
Okay.
know goats chew.
Cloven and chew. This is disgusting. Very informative.
That's about the only thing I have the stomach for.
Yeah, there wasn't anything about vegetables or fruit.
Those are
Anything vegetarian is fine.
Well, that's like, oh, yes.
So the story goes that nobody was really allowed to eat meat until after the flood. Carnivorosity is a concession to the human desire for violence and domination. So God said, instead of killing each other, you can kill cows.
So does that explain the reference to the land other that the realm God restored her? That
Yeah, the idea is that in the ideal state of things, there would be no violence, and so lions wouldn't eat lambs. They would survive on something else, which is scientifically implausible, but it's a metaphor.
So, everyone, it sounds like you follow the kosher rule presented.
Like 90%, yeah.
means to be kosher.
I eat the vegetarian things, like the cheesy bean and rice burritos.
What about I've never actually labeled goat milk or any of those kinds of things. That's no dairy, right?
It's not
So
really
it's not.
milk.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
really milk, so it's not considered.
That would just be like vegetarian.
So I might have missed this, Evelyn, because I missed the third session.
Mhm.
So when you said Jews didn't believe or heaven,
Mhm.
So what is the overall concept of Jewish in terms of promise? Is it following the law? So if you follow the law, then you're good. But is it just life here on earth?
What does Judaism say about souls, or not say?
There are some different ideas about afterlife. I think that's the general question.
Okay.
Like what happens after you die, right? The oldest one is that when you die, you go to Sheol, which is an underground place that is dark and kind of wet. So literally you die and you are buried. Some later ideas were developed, like resurrection. We borrowed that from the Persians. Some will believe in like reincarnation. Some believe that in the future age of the Messiah, people will be resurrected and get to enjoy the world to come. There's no real consensus, but there's not like someplace out there that we go to.
What about burial? Jews cremated?
You're not allowed to be cremated. When you die, you should be buried in a plain wooden box, something biodegradable, and you should be buried within 24 hours of your death.
So no embalming necessary.
No embalming. As for souls, like, yeah, we have souls. We have the breath of God in us, as does everything else that breathes. We might have like a special soul, though, because we can talk and stuff. But it's not really something that we'd spend a lot of time discussing. Maybe the Kabbalists would have more thoughts, but they are a rare breed.
And how about service, discipleship, doing God's work?
Yes. There are a lot of laws that say you should do good things. There's at least 613 laws. And not all of them are things that you can't do. Many of them are things that you have to do. One of those is giving to charity, or helping clothe people, take care of the widow and the orphan. Did that answer the question?
What is the feeling about immigrants in terms of, there are, I don't even remember where they're at in the Bible. God says once, in Egypt, we're immigrants in Egypt and now need to be too. Welcome strangers.
The most repeated commandment in the whole Torah is be kind to the stranger, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt.
Okay, right.
The immigrant among you is to be as your own people. It's very clear. Unless you count, I am the Lord your God as a commandment, in which case that one's repeated more. There's some debate about that.
What is the nature of the debate?
Whether or not I am the Lord your God who led you out of Egypt to be your God, I am the Lord your God, is a command or not?
Yeah, and what are the arguments?
Yes or no?
What does it command you to do, I guess? It's just from the declaration.
Essentially, it commands you to have God as your God.
One God.
That specific God. Yeah.
I mean, because is there more to that statement, God who led you out of, is there anything about, and you won't have like the Ten Commandments, won't have false gods before you, or whatever that goes.
That's part of the argument. Like, does it imply don't worship other gods? Does it imply, like, if there's a God who didn't lead you out of Egypt, then that shouldn't be your God, only I should?
Well, is that, I'll show my ignorance here, is that the first commandment, or is that the preamble to Ten Commandments?
The Ten Commandments is a mistranslation. A better translation would be the 10 utterings. So Jews will consider I am the Lord your God to be the first of the 10 utterings. But everybody has...
Have no other gods before it.
That would be the second.
We should actually go through Exodus.
Everybody numbers them differently. The Jews have their numbering, the Catholics have their numbering, mainline Protestants have their numbering. Different different Orthodox churches will have totally different numberings.
So when they want to put the 10 Commandments in public schools, it depends on who's doing it.
No, there's only one kind that has been approved for that.
Okay, which kind?
Yep.
I don't know.
Whichever one the Southern Baptists have, probably.
Yeah, whichever one they.
But when you talked about Jewish laws, did you previously talk about the commandments as part of or utterings?
They're not more important than any other laws.
Okay.
The Christian tradition has placed undue emphasis on them.
No, is that just since Chester? Was that? I'm just trying to get.
I don't know who that is.
You
Really?
started the movie The Ten Commandments. It was very old.
I know.
Way before your time.
Yeah.
I was
sure
pretty
that
young
was-
when I saw that.
It might be because of Mel Brooks.